You're fired. By tomorrow your things must be out of this office." The millionaire slammed the door shut. She didn't answer, only clenched the folder so hard her knuckles turned white. A minute later, just as he was signing the dismissal order, the phone rang. That call changed everything. The screen flashed with the number of his biggest investor. His chest tightened, the entire multi-million deal depended on that man. He glanced at the secretary, she stared back at him in silence, but in her eyes was something that stirred a strange unease inside him. The voice on the line was sharp, merciless. "We've seen the documents. If you don't give us an answer by tomorrow, the deal is off." He froze. What documents? Who had shown them? And most of all, why was the secretary smiling as if she alone knew what could destroy or save his future? "Which documents?" he barked, forcing his tone to sound steady. His pen hovered above the signature line, ink bleeding into the paper. On the other end, silence stretched before the investor added, "Don't play games. You have less than 24 hours. Then the line went dead. He slammed the phone down, pulse pounding in his ears. "What have you done?" His eyes locked on her, sharp, accusing. She didn't flinch. She placed the folder on his desk with deliberate calm, as if daring him to open it. "Maybe you should read before you sign," she said softly, but her voice carried firmness, even defiance. It wasn't a plea, it was a challenge. For years, he had dictated every meeting, every deal, every word. Now his own secretary was holding the upper hand. The weight of her gaze made him feel cornered inside his own office. He reached for the folder, then stopped. "If this is some trick," his voice trailed off. He couldn't afford to show doubt, not to her, not to anyone. Yet his fingers trembled on the leather cover. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You're about to lose more than just a contract. The question is whether you'll listen, or keep pretending you're untouchable." Her words cut deeper than any investor's threat. Anger, pride, and a sharp flicker of fear twisted inside him. He had minutes to decide: rip the folder apart and prove his dominance, or open it and risk facing something he wasn't ready for. The air thickened, silence pressing in like a weight. Outside, the city lights flickered against the night, indifferent to the storm inside. He pulled the folder closer, heart racing. The moment he flipped the first page, his jaw tightened. What stared back at him wasn't a simple report, it was a revelation. And it bore her signature. His eyes burned as they scanned the first page. The numbers were precise, ruthless, undeniable. Every line exposed gaps in his empire, losses buried under optimistic forecasts, contracts signed but never honored. It was all there, written like a death sentence. And at the bottom, her signature, proof she had seen it all before he did. He slammed the folder shut, pushing it back toward her. "Where did you get this?" His voice cracked between fury and panic. She didn't move. "I compiled it. Every mistake. Every blind spot you ignored. You went behind my back." He rose to his feet, looming over her. "Do you realize what this means if the board sees it?" Her gaze didn't waver. "They've already seen it." The words hit him harder than any financial blow. His chest tightened as if the walls were closing in. For a moment, he felt stripped of the authority he had wielded for years. She had gone from being invisible in his office to holding the dagger at his throat. "You've destroyed me," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "No," she said firmly, leaning closer. "I saved you. You just don't see it yet." Silence roared between them, broken only by the faint hum of city traffic below. He felt rage boiling inside, but beneath it something else pulsed, the faint, terrifying possibility she might be right. He made his choice. He shoved the folder back toward himself and yanked it open again. "Then you're going to explain, line by line." His decision wasn't surrender, it was survival. If there was a chance to stop the bleeding, he would take it. But just as she began to speak, the intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice cracked with urgency. "Sir, the investor's representative is here. He refuses to wait." The millionaire froze. He wasn't ready. Not now, not with the evidence scattered across his desk and the woman he had just fired standing her ground. The secretary's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Well," she said quietly, "you wanted a choice. Now you have one." The office door opened before he could respond. A tall man in a dark suit stepped inside, the kind of presence that carried weight without a single word. He didn't bother shaking hands. Instead, he placed a sealed envelope on the desk between them. "The investor wants answers tonight," the man said coldly. "You have until sunrise. If not, the deal is gone." The millionaire's jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." The representative's eyes flicked toward the secretary, lingering longer than they should have. Something unspoken passed between them. His stomach clenched. They know each other. He grabbed the envelope, tore it open, and pulled out a single page. It wasn't a contract. It was worse, a list of competitors, each marked with checkboxes. 3 were already crossed out. His company's name was next. His throat dried. "What is this?" The man leaned closer. "A warning. Those who can't deliver will be erased." The secretary finally spoke, her voice steady. "And you think he's next?" The representative ignored her. His cold gaze returned to the millionaire. "You have one ally in this room. Decide if you'll use her or discard her. At sunrise, it won't matter." The silence that followed was suffocating. The millionaire felt the ground shifting beneath him, the walls of power closing in. He looked at the woman he had fired only minutes ago. Every instinct told him to push her away. Yet every fact on the page screamed she was the only person who had seen this storm coming. His decision came in a rush. He shoved the folder across the table toward her. "Then prove it," he said, his voice hard. "Show me how to fight back." Her eyes flickered, surprise, then resolve. "You'll regret saying that," she whispered. Before she could explain, the representative's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face tightening. "It started," he muttered. Without another word, he strode out of the office, leaving only the echo of his footsteps and the heavy silence behind. The millionaire turned back to the secretary, his voice low, urgent. "What did he mean? What has started?" She hesitated, then slid a second folder from her bag, one he hadn't seen before. "You're about to find out," she said, placing it in front of him. And on the cover was a name he hadn't heard in 10 years, a name he thought was buried with his past. The name on the folder froze him. It had been a decade since he'd heard it spoken aloud, but even now it cut like glass. Marcus Hale. A rival, a former partner, a ghost from the past who had once nearly destroyed him. He felt his pulse climb, every instinct screaming to tear the folder apart and uncover what Marcus had to do with this night. He forced himself to breathe, to steady his voice. "Where did you get this?" The secretary didn't answer right away. Instead, she tapped the cover lightly, as if warning him. "Open it, and you'll understand why the investor doesn't trust you anymore." His hand trembled as he flipped the page. Inside were contracts, emails, financial trails, all leading back to Marcus. But there was something worse, documents stamped with his own signature. He staggered back in disbelief. "I never signed these." "That's the point," she replied sharply. "Someone wants the world to think you did." Rage burned through him. For years he had built his empire brick by brick, silencing every doubt about his worth. Now Marcus's shadow had returned, dragging him back toward ruin. Yet amid the fury, a flicker of relief sparked. At least now he knew who the enemy was. "We can fight this," he said, shoving the folder closed. His voice hardened, finding strength in the chaos. For the first time that night, he felt like a man reclaiming his ground. But his moment of resolve shattered when his desk phone lit up again. A call from the investor's office. His stomach turned. He picked up, determined to sound unshaken. "Mr. Gray," the voice said, cold and final, "we've just received confirmation Marcus Hale is presenting your documents to the board tomorrow. If you can't disprove them, the deal is his." The line clicked dead. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the receiver. He turned slowly to the secretary. She was already watching him, calm but unrelenting. "Now you see," she said quietly. "This isn't about firing me. This is about survival." Her words hung in the air, heavier than the city skyline outside. And for the first time in years, the millionaire realized he might not be fighting for millions, he might be fighting for everything. The room seemed to shrink around him. Marcus Hale presenting his signature to the board? It was more than sabotage, it was character assassination. The deal, his reputation, his empire, everything was hanging by a thread. He turned back to the secretary, his voice raw. "If what you're saying is true, then by tomorrow I'll be ruined." "You're not ruined yet," she replied firmly. "But you can't fight this alone." The word stung. He had spent his entire career convincing the world, and himself, that he needed no one. Now, with Marcus moving in for the kill, that armor was cracking. His phone buzzed again, this time with a message notification. He hesitated before reading it. The text was short, vicious: "We both know you can't prove it. Step aside, Gray." Signed, Marcus Hale. His hand shook with rage. "He's daring me to quit." "Then don't," the secretary said sharply. "Fight back. But you'll have to risk more than you've ever risked before." "What risk?" he demanded. Her eyes flicked to the folder. "Exposing the truth means exposing your weaknesses. Everything you've buried, every debt, every compromise, it all comes out." The thought hit him like a punch. For years, he had hidden the cracks in his empire under polished deals and bold headlines. Revealing them would be like cutting himself open in front of sharks. He paced the office, torn between two poisons. If he stayed silent, Marcus would take everything. If he fought, the world might see just how fragile his empire truly was. The secretary stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This is the moment. Decide. Either you cling to your pride and watch him win, or you gamble everything and take back control." He stopped pacing, chest heaving. The choice was brutal, but it was a choice. Slowly, he nodded. "Then we fight." For the first time, her expression softened. But before either could speak, the office lights flickered, and the building's security alarm blared. The millionaire froze. "What now?" The secretary's face went pale as she glanced at the window. "He's not waiting until tomorrow." The alarm's wail cut through the office like a blade. He rushed to the window, red lights flashed in the street below, security vehicles circling the building. His chest pounded. Marcus wasn't bluffing, he was already tightening the noose. The secretary pulled him back. "Focus. Panic is what he wants." She pressed the second folder into his hands again. "The representative left for a reason. There's something in here you need to see before they force you out." His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were surveillance reports, transaction records, and notes written in a precise, unfamiliar script. At the bottom of the first page was a name, Daniel Cross. He froze. "Who the hell is this?" Her eyes narrowed. "The investor's representative. He's not just a messenger, Gray. He's Marcus's insurance policy." The weight of the revelation slammed into him. All night, Daniel's cold stare, his deliberate silence, the strange connection with the secretary, it all lined up now. But it didn't make sense. If Daniel was tied to Marcus, why warn him at all? He sank into his chair, the folder slipping from his hands. His strength drained like water through a crack. For the first time, he felt older than his years, battered, cornered, and tired of fighting ghosts that never seemed to stay buried. The secretary knelt in front of him, her voice sharp but steady. "I know you want to quit. But listen to me, Marcus doesn't just want your company. He wants your legacy erased. If you stop now, you'll give him exactly what he wants." Her words stung. He wanted to believe her, but the exhaustion was real. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the desk. "And what if this is all a game? What if Daniel played us both?" She hesitated, then whispered, "That's the part one can't prove, yet." His eyes flicked back to the folder, to Daniel's name scrawled across the reports. The answer felt closer than ever, almost within reach. But before he could ask more, the office door burst open. 2 security guards stepped inside, their expressions grim. "Mr. Gray," one said, "you need to come with us. Now." The guards closed in, their shadows stretching across the office floor. "This isn't optional," one of them said flatly. "The board wants you escorted out until tomorrow's hearing." His chest tightened. Being removed from his own office was humiliation of the worst kind. He tried to push past them, but one guard blocked his path. The secretary stepped forward, defiant. "You can't just drag him out." The second guard cut her off, flashing an official order. The letterhead bore the investor's seal. Signed by the majority of the board. Effective immediately. The millionaire's throat burned. The betrayal wasn't just Marcus. It was his own board turning against him, the men he had trusted, bought dinners for, defended in public. His empire wasn't crumbling from the outside, it was collapsing from within. "Let them take me," he muttered bitterly, brushing the secretary's arm aside. "If they've already chosen Marcus, nothing I do tonight matters." Her eyes blazed. "That's exactly what he wants you to think." She shoved the folder back into his chest. "Read page 12 before you give up." They pulled him toward the door, but he managed to glance down as the papers shifted. A note, scribbled in hurried handwriting, caught his eye. "There's one contract Marcus doesn't control yet." Hope flickered in the darkness. It wasn't much, but it was something, an unclaimed thread, a chance to fight back if he could hold on long enough. The guards pushed him into the elevator. The doors slid shut, cutting off the secretary's voice as she shouted after him. Her final words echoed in his head, "Don't let him erase you." As the elevator descended, his hands clenched around the folder. Betrayal scorched his pride, but that single line on page 12 pulsed like a lifeline. The doors opened to the underground garage. Empty, silent, too silent. He stepped out, only to see headlights flick on across the concrete. A black car rolled slowly forward, stopping just yards away. The rear window slid down. A familiar voice spoke from the shadows. "Get in, Gray. We need to talk." It was Marcus Hale. The garage smelled of oil and concrete, the echo of dripping water amplifying the silence. Marcus Hale leaned forward in the back seat of the black car, his face half hidden in shadow. The last time Gray had seen him was a decade ago, across a courtroom table. Now here he was, calm, calculated, and very much alive in his empire's ruin. "You've always underestimated me," Marcus said, his voice smooth. "And now your board finally sees it too. They were mine long before you realized they'd abandoned you." Gray tightened his grip on the folder in his hand. "You forged my signature. You poisoned everything I built." Marcus smirked. "Forged? Or simply revealed what you didn't want the world to know?" He tapped his fingers against the window frame. "Those documents, they were never meant for the board. They were meant for you. Someone close decided you needed to be tested." Gray's breath caught. "The secretary. She had known about the files before he did. Was she saving him, or setting him up for Marcus? Marcus leaned closer. You think she's loyal? You think she's the reason you'll survive this? She's the reason I know every weakness you tried to bury. The word sliced deeper than betrayal. His mind spun with doubt, but his gut resisted. He remembered her steady eyes, her voice urging him not to quit. He had seen defiance, not deception. Still. Marcus's certainty gnawed at him. You want to know why the investor doubts you? Marcus continued, slipping a sealed envelope across the car seat. Open this. Then tell me if you still trust her. Gray stared at the envelope, his pulse hammering in his temples. Every instinct screamed it was another trap, but what if it wasn't? What if inside was the truth he had been chasing all night? He hesitated, then made his choice. He reached for the envelope, tearing it open with shaking hands. Inside was a single photo, time-stamped only hours earlier, his secretary, seated across from Daniel Cross. Papers between them. Her pen in hand. His throat closed. Marcus's grin widened. Now tell me, Marcus whispered, who's really standing with you? The photo shook in his hands, his breath ragged. His secretary, the one person who had stood by him through this storm, sitting with Daniel Cross, the man tied to Marcus. It felt like the final crack splitting through his chest. Marcus leaned back, savoring the moment. You built your empire on control. And now look, you can't even control the people closest to you. Gray slammed the photo against the seat. You forged this. Just like the contracts. Marcus's smirk never wavered. Believe that, if it helps you sleep. But tomorrow, when the board votes, they won't care what you believe. They'll care about evidence. He gestured at the photo. And right now, all of it points to your downfall. Gray's fists clenched, his knuckles bone white. He was cornered. Stripped of allies, stripped of dignity. For a brief, crushing second, he wanted to surrender, to let Marcus take it all. But then his eyes fell back on the folder pressed against his chest. Page 12. The one contract Marcus didn't control. A spark flickered inside him, small, fragile, but alive. He turned sharply to Marcus. If you already have the board, why warn me? Why bother showing me this? Marcus's grin faltered just enough to reveal a crack. Because I want you to see it. I want you to know you lost to me, not to chance. The words twisted like a knife. Marcus wasn't here to destroy quietly, he wanted to humiliate him, to break him completely. Gray drew a slow breath. Maybe you're right. Maybe she betrayed me. But maybe you're afraid she didn't. For the first time, Marcus's eyes darkened. Careful, Gray. Before he could press further, his phone buzzed. A new message. He glanced at the screen, and froze. It was from his secretary. Just one line, don't trust what you saw. Meet me before midnight. Everything changes then. His pulse thundered. Was this another trap, or the only way out? Marcus leaned closer, whispering like poison. If you walk out of here and go to her, you won't walk back. Gray sat in silence, torn between two worlds, betrayal and hope, ruin and redemption. The garage felt like it was closing in, pressure building toward a breaking point. And as the car door opened, letting in the night air, he knew, whatever choice he made next would ignite the explosion no one could stop. Gray stepped out of the car, Marcus's warning still hissing in his ears. The photo burned in his pocket, the folder heavy in his hand. Betrayal or loyalty, he had no proof, only a choice. And he chose to face her. He found her waiting in a dimly lit cafe near the river. No guards, no briefcases, just her, eyes steady, hands empty. For the first time all night, she looked tired, human. You think I betrayed you, she said before he could speak. Marcus wanted you to believe that. He staged the photo. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a recording, Daniel Cross's voice, whispering instructions to frame her. Gray's chest tightened. Relief and fury tangled inside him. She hadn't betrayed him, she had been fighting her own battle in the shadows. Why didn't you tell me earlier? His voice broke. Because you never listen until you're losing, she answered softly. You needed to see the truth for yourself. Her words stung, but they were true. For years, he had built walls of pride, blind to the people who carried him through storms. And tonight, those walls had finally cracked. Together they opened the folder to page 12. The contract. It was a supply deal Marcus hadn't touched, signed with an independent partner who still believed in Gray's vision. With it, they could prove Marcus's fraud, and more importantly, they could show the board a future without him. The next morning, the boardroom was thick with tension. Marcus stood tall, papers in hand, victory already written in his grin. But when Gray entered, flanked not by lawyers, but by the secretary he had nearly discarded, the room shifted. He laid the contract on the table, then pressed play on the recording. Daniel's voice filled the silence, dripping with proof of conspiracy. Gasps rippled through the room. Marcus's smirk collapsed into rage. Gray looked him in the eye, voice steady. You tried to erase me. Instead, you exposed yourself. The vote was swift. Marcus was out. Gray stayed, not as the untouchable tyrant he once was, but as a man reborn. As the meeting ended, he turned to the secretary. I fired you once. Now I want you as my partner. Her smile was small but fierce. Then let's build something worth fighting for. The city lights shimmered through the glass walls, not as threats this time, but as promises. He had walked through betrayal, humiliation, and near ruin, only to rise higher, not by crushing others, but by finally trusting someone beside him. And for the first time in years, Gray felt free.